I can really relate. I mean, when you were talking right now, one of the things that came into my mind is, and I've told this story before, but when I was probably about 10 years old, I mean, I was literally waiting on the corner for my father. My parents were
Oh
divorced.
yeah.
And of course he was,
Oof.
he was, I mean, he would get me on the weekends or whatever.
Sure.
And there would be many, many times where I would be just waiting for him to come and pick me up so we could have a cool father-son weekend. And so many things that he told me, we're going to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to get ATCs and we were going to travel here and none of that shit ever happened, you know? And but so kind of the good and the bad of the situation, because of course, I always try to look for the silver lining in
Yeah.
all things. Uh, but I think that one of the things that helped me to become successful in business was because that happened to me, because that
Yep.
trauma as a young child helped me become a grown man where, I was incredible father. I mean, my kids are 17 and 21 now, but I mean, incredible father and incredible businessman. I mean, I was always there. I always did what I said I was going to do. I'm
Yep.
very, very reliable. Like I am the most
Yes.
reliable
Which we
person
talked
you'll
about
ever
in the
meet.
beginning. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is where this came from. I mean, so it's amazing because everything you're saying is so right on, because it's amazing that, like just a
Also why
situation.
you were getting around people who couldn't show up. That's what
Yes.
you
Yes.
continue. That was a father wound that you had to
Yes.
heal. And also why
Absolutely.
when you do meet someone for that actually values time and respects you and shows up and values the same thing. Oh my God. When you heal from that wound, you will get
Right.
to appreciate the people who have also overcome that and value that same thing too. You get
Right.
to
Right.
see them more clearly and appreciate. And now that person feels seen. And now you feel
Right.
more seen because you're finally finding people that are in alignment because you've healed. And the cool part is that you didn't pass that on to your kids
Right.
by accident. When we don't
Right.
heal from the things that hurt us, we accidentally give it to our kids so that, and then they have to kind of heal from it. And we might actually go into the extreme. You might be someone that, like, you could have gone to the other extreme where if your kids made a simple mistake, lost it on them. If they didn't show
Yeah.
up for something, or if they really felt like something wasn't for them, you're forcing them to do things they don't want to do because they have to show up. They have to show up. And now they feel pressured and they constantly get around people that are so we can go to the opposite extreme and wind up still actually creating that generational trauma that gets passed down. So majority of us over here are just breaking some chains so that, you know.
But it's such an interesting subject to talk about, because I think that even I worry sometimes about my kids, though, because they've had very little trauma in their life.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, maybe they have, I don't know, maybe they have, but they've always had everything. I mean, I did well from an early
Yes.
age, and so they've had everything. They've never had to struggle. They've never had to worry about money. They've never had to worry about
Right.
living in a beautiful home and all the things that, and I just, but I sometimes I worry on the flip side, because they
Right.
didn't have that trauma. What kind of adults will they become? And I'm not, look,
I coach a lot of that, by the way. I've
look,
coached a lot of that.
they're great kids. I mean, they're
Yeah.
A students. They do what they say they're going to do. They're good human. Like, to me,
Yeah.
the most important thing is they're good
Are
human
they good human?
beings. I mean, like, they're
Yes.
good little humans, and that is like my most proudest thing,
I love that. Yeah.
but anyway, so this
I
is
but
really
just so
cool.
you know, I
Uh-huh.
have clients that'll come in and go, I had a great childhood. Why am I getting with this toxic person, or why am I getting with someone? So that's why I said earlier, everyone will receive the world in a certain way. And if something happens where they're perceiving that there's a lack or they're not good enough, or whatever it is, it plants a seed of like, oh no, I'm not safe here. Your kids could have gone and scraped their knee on the sidewalk and then gone, the sidewalk is lava, I never want to go on the sidewalk again. And then if they scrape the knee the next time, now all of a sudden they got OCD on sidewalks. Everyone. And so a lot of people will think, oh, if I don't have trauma, then I don't have a right to have things that affect me. Absolutely not. We all have different things that we've been born into, which will have its ups and downs that you will have to overcome. Um, I've had people where, like I said, they might feel like if they don't get a good grade, and you won't even know this, it will come out later. But if they don't get a good grade, then they're not good enough, and so they constantly feel like they have to prove themselves. That can happen whether or not you have trauma, or whether or not like it was, feeling like you got more rewards when you did really well, and now it's planted a seed that like you can only receive love if you do really well. Anything can happen like that. So everyone is in this together. And you also know too that people with silver spoons have completely different, they have also imposter syndrome. They'll have to go through like, I didn't earn this, I'm not worthy, I didn't over. Everyone, regardless if you got a silver spoon or you got the spoon beaten on you, we all have very similar limiting beliefs, and we all are overcoming imposter syndrome and feeling not good enough and feeling like I'm not worthy and feeling not seen and not heard. We'll all go through certain things like that. And that's why it's like even opposite sides of the political spectrum are literally screaming the same exact thing. How men and women screaming the same exact thing. Men and women. When I started coaching men and I started realizing the amount of like abuse and narcissistic abuse and psychological abuse that a lot of men have gone through, but don't know how to process emotions and stop, repeating that. Women, speak their emotions. Men can repress their emotions, is what we've taught society. Again, men and women screaming the same thing, have a lot of the same things that have happened to them. Women will have slightly different things. There's been more of an oppression there. Men have more of like a psychological thing. But the similarities of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, it's my fault, I'm not important, I'm not seen, it's never going to happen for me. It's always one step forward, two steps back. Men are toxic, women are toxic. Toxic people always give me the best, inner quarters or whatever. We have all of these things. We are so much more similar than a lot of people realize. And that actually blew my mind when I really stepped into coaching.
Is it, do you feel that this, because I've been saying this for a little while. I mean, I think women are right now, it is like their decade, man. I mean, women, they are just coming out strong. I mean, more women CEOs in the world now. I mean, more billionaire women right now. I mean, just powerful time for women.
Oh yeah.
Is this hurting their relationships though with men? I mean, in the sense that they're becoming so strong, so maybe masculine, that is this a challenge? Do you see this as being a challenge for men and women in this world that we're living in?
So here's the thing. Things have not changed in the form of like trauma and human behavior. It's manifesting slightly differently. And right now, the only difference is that we have more information and access to information available, which we have also access to misinformation. But we have the access to heal. A lot more people are healing. Now, here's the thing about masculine. And no, women are getting in their masculine. When a woman is traumatized, they have to put a guard up that puts them in their masculine. So back in the day, for instance, when women were popping Quaaludes and getting thrown into like, I love psychology. I had a big issue with Freud. Back in the day with Freud, he didn't understand women and he never thought to ask. And so he even said on his deathbed, the one thing that he wished he understood more was women. Back in the day when a woman had her period or time of the month, or was, emotional in any way, showed any form of like excess emotions, she got thrown in a loony bin. Now, back in, I think it was like the 50s, something like that, part of what they would used to do for women is they used to put a cardboard smile on your face and make you look in the mirror, because they said that smiling would make you happier, would make you more approachable, would make you more likable. It's the reason why today when a woman gets told, smile, you should smile more, there's literally inside of us something that goes, because that's actually a generational trauma that's been passed down that a lot of people don't know about. Women were not allowed to say in the workforce, hey, please don't touch me. Please don't comment on my body. I'm really here to work. We weren't allowed to say that because you'd get fired. Now, here's the other thing. And this is very true. Everyone, no matter what, whether you're a CEO or you want to be at home and you want to be pregnant and barefoot and cooking and cleaning. Oh my God, love all of it. it doesn't matter. You can be hyper in your masculine and you can also have wounded feminine. Men on this one too. I've coached men that are the stay-at-home dad with incredible relationships. They mostly were coaching me because they had a toxic mom or something that kept trying to insert herself. It's a balance. Everyone has masculine and feminine energy inside of them. I think we get confused because of the term masculine and feminine, that we think only men have this and only women have this. No, masculine energy is forward motion and decision making. Feminine energy is intuition, which is extremely important in decision making as well, and being an effective leader in CEO. Because if you don't know how to pick and you keep picking based on your trauma, you're going to keep getting around people who are flakes until you learn how to actually heal and listen to your intuition, not your anxiety. So women, whether we're CEOs or not, studies have shown that like the happiness factor, with women is escalated, has grown a lot more. And the main thing, no matter what, is everyone has to heal from their stuff. Otherwise, if you go into the hyper extreme or the other side of it, you're going to create more. So with a lot of women at first, and anyone, this isn't just apply to women, because I'm watching this happen with a lot of men too. Men had their awakening into like 2020 and a little before that. So when we've woken up to, oh my goodness, I have emotions and I'm in trauma and I don't like this, what first happens is screaming. You get the wounded teenager and the wounded inner child. We see this a lot. And what's happening is that it's being too much pushed right now on the media. And so a lot of it's getting sensationalized, wherever everyone's like, oh, it's this and it's that. And it's like, no, it's not. Everyone's going to come back to center. But when you first, like a child, for instance, if one of your children was in a lot of pain and you didn't notice it, what happens when you finally see them and notice them? They're going to scream.
Right.
Because they haven't been seen, they've been hurt, they've been getting beaten, and you haven't been noticing, and they've been screaming it. So the first thing that happens when anyone wakes up from trauma is screaming. What happens with that is, like with women, you had the unhealed, wounded. Oh, hold on. So sorry. My camera just overheated. Let me do it. Okay. So what winds up happening is when anyone is coming out and finally realizing that they have trauma, the first thing that happens is they kind of start screaming, because it's a lot of pain that's been pushed down in your body. We noticed this with men too, where it was like men started dumping their emotions, realizing they have emotions, and they're like, what do I do with all this? Right. And it has to go somewhere because it's been buried down and buried down and buried down. We cover it with porn. We cover it with addictions. We cover it with overworking. We cover it with so many things. So the first stage is always a huge kind of epiphany of like, oh, wow, this hurts, and dumping it. The main thing though, and I am very big on this one with women, is I am not a fan. And look, I've been someone who was in the toxic feminine before and wounded feminine. So I had to go through this too. I can't say anything. I get it. I know what happens when you have trauma. So I'm big on this one. If women, when a woman doesn't heal and she's going into like, men be quiet, it's a woman's turn to speak now, what you're doing is you're continuing the generational trauma that's making young boys still now feel like they don't have a voice, that they're not allowed their emotions, that they're not allowed to be human, and they're not allowed to make those mistakes, and they're not allowed to like be authentically themselves. And so you will create more of a suppression of emotions again, which is the confirmation bias. You'll create that which you do not want. So for women, it's up to us to heal that wound and heal from the men that hurt us, so that we don't create it more, and so that we don't keep walking into it more. But as far as for CEOs and for things like that, no, the only thing that's happened with that is that women have more access to generating their own wealth, not having to get stuck into abusive relationships, not having to stay together for the kids. Same with men too. Men now finally coming out and going, I've been abused by this woman, and now they get to heal so that they don't have to get into abusive relationships. So your job title doesn't matter. It's mostly just, where are you at with healing from your wounds so you don't repeat them.
If you like this video and you want to watch another one, click right here. If you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.